Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for taking the time to be here. In your opening statement, you talked about the American recovery that's going on right now, but I did note that you did not speak to the point that we have the lowest labor participation rate in 37 years, that we're seeing for the first time more small businesses shut down than there are new business startups in this country. And one of the important issues that we have, particularly in rural areas like I represent, is access to capital from our community banks that's going on. And recently, Senator Warren was stated that the financial performance of the community banks shows that Congress and the regulators, I think, have done a pretty good job of tailoring the rules to be able to protect community banks. Do you agree with that?
Look, I've said in response to several questions, I think that both the law and the regulations implementing the law have taken account of the difference between small, medium, and large-size institutions. There may be additional flexibilities that need to be used, but I generally agree that that there has been a lot of attention paid to not treating all financial institutions the same.
Let me give you an example in my district. Just met with a small community bank in Delta, Colorado, Colorado First National Bank. They said that burdensome capital requirements and excessive regulations require the money to be able to spend money on just complying with regulations as opposed to being able to grow the bank and to be able to have access, availability of capital for loans for that local community bank. And they said the bottom line is they really feel that they no longer run their bank, but it's being run by the federal government and by regulations. What do you tell that small bank?
Look, I know that there are a lot of pressures on financial institutions of all size. What I would tell that bank is that we have designed rules, and the regulators have designed rules to try and take account of the differences in terms of the level of reporting and what's required. And it would really depend what the specific issues were.
You've spent a fair amount of time being concerned about small community banks and addressing that in your meetings?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because we did a review of the minutes of the 40 FSOC meetings conducted from 2010 to 2014, and it yielded not a single reference to community banks or the effect that regulatory burdens are having on their viability. When did you talk about it?
I mean, many of these issues are not FSOC issues writ large. Individual regulators.
Yeah, but under Section 112 of the Dodd-Frank Act, that is your responsibility.
I have over the last 2 years since I've been chairman of FSOC, taken seriously the coordination responsibility, particularly in areas that involve some of the housing issues, and there have been conversations, but it's not in the context of an FSOC meeting because it doesn't. It's in the jurisdiction of the individual regulators.
But there's no mention of dealing with small banks, and you haven't dealt with that in those meetings. I want to be able to drive home that point that we are really...
We have not ruled out doing a more formal review, but we've been in the implementation stage where agencies have had the first round of implementing Dodd-Frank on their plates. And that's really what we've been engaged in.
You know, I'd like to go back actually to the chairman's first line of questioning in regards to the FSSB because I'm not really sure I heard an answer to that question. When the FSB tells members that they expect full, consistent, and prompt implementation on agreed reforms on international finance systems, is he assuming that you will obey?
I think that it's well known that the decisions on decision-making in each country are made by the national authorities in that country. We've always been clear that we retain control of...
When did the FSB, I think it was MetLife, when did they determine that they were going to be a SIFI?
I would have to go back and check the date, but we made an independent determination in FSOC.
How long after the FSB made the determination?
The FSB's review and the FSOC review were entirely separate. Okay.
Are decisions made by the FSB, do you believe those to be binding on Treasury,
I believe that the FSB process does, it permits us as a country with the highest standards to drive the global standards to a higher level, which makes it a safer financial system and a more level playing field for the United States. But in each case, countries ultimately retain their own national authority over their regulatory activities.
So again, I'm sorry, I'm just not really hearing the answer truly to that question. once the FSB makes it, do you view that as being binding? That was kind of the original agreement.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything about participation in the FSB that relieves the national authorities from the ultimate responsibility for making their own policy.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams.